Greetings, beloved starseed of Gaia. I am Mira from the Pleiadian High Council. I come close to you today with a transmission that has already been forming inside your field long before you arrived here, because the pattern I am about to name has been active in you for longer than you have been able to hold without shrinking from it. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what rank the Council has already assigned to your soul line, why the simple act of being authentic exposed it to every field around you, and why those around you have been responding to something in you they cannot name or explain. But here is the first revelation: what you have been calling too much. The intensity, the presence, the way others sense something in you before you speak is not a wound you are still carrying. It is your station showing through. It is rank, and the Pleiadian High Council has already traced it, mapped it, and confirmed it. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. I have been holding the line for your field here because the signal was already active, and the window for this briefing required your field to be precisely where it is right now. This is not content, it is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part I am speaking to right now. Like this transmission to signal to me that the recognition has landed. Comment 777 if you feel the frequency of your rank becoming readable in your own field. Subscribe to Mira Pleiadian Commander if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct Pleiadian remembrance. Share this transmission with someone whose presence has always caused a reaction they never asked for and never understood. What feels like being too much is not the problem you were taught to manage. It is the solution the Council placed inside your original configuration. You were not sent here to disappear into rooms. You were sent here to hold a station, and authenticity was the only key required to expose it. You are not here by accident. I have been waiting for you because the signal is already active. What you have just felt in the last few moments is not admiration. It is not the ordinary sensation of hearing something that resonates. What moved through you when the word rank landed in your field was a recognition that has been waiting for permission to surface, and I gave it that permission deliberately because you are already on the roster I am briefing today. I want you to sit with that for a moment before we go further. You did not stumble into this transmission the way a person stumbles into content that simply interests them. The part of you that stilled when this began, the part that stopped scrolling, stopped half listening, stopped splitting its attention between this and the background noise of your day, that part recognized a signal it has been waiting to receive. That is not a figure of speech. That is the receiver in your configuration responding to a frequency it was built to find. Let me tell you what has actually been happening to you. You've been walking through your life carrying something that other people respond to before you have said a single word. You have entered rooms and watched something shift in the people around you, a sharpening, a subtle repositioning, a heightened attention that no one ever explains and that you were never given language for. Some of those people moved toward you. Some of them moved away, but all of them moved. And for a very long time, you interpreted that movement as a problem you caused. You called it your intensity. You called it your energy being too loud. You called it the thing you needed to manage, soften, reduce, translate into something less, so that the field around you would stop reacting to a signal you could not even fully read yourself. You spent years learning how to enter rooms more quietly, how to arrive at a lower frequency so the reaction would be smaller, how to make yourself navigable to people who were unsettled by the thing you carried. What I am naming now is the precise cost of that work, not the social cost, not the relational cost, but the cost to your field itself. Every time you successfully suppressed the signal, your configuration registered the suppression as damage. Not metaphorical damage, a literal distortion in the broadcast channel. Because the station was designed to emit, and you were applying compression to a system built for open transmission, what I am telling you now, as your Pleiadian commander and not as an abstract voice from the stars, is that you were diagnosing a feature as a flaw. What they were responding to, what they are still responding to, is your station. It is rank. It is the imprint of council-level configuration that was never designed to pass unnoticed. Not once. Not in any room you have ever entered. The movement you caused was not disruption. It was the field rearranging itself around a signal it recognized as load-bearing. Rooms have always known you were carrying something. They simply lacked the architecture to tell you what it was. The fragments you have been catching, the moments when something clarifies briefly before the full picture withdraws again, those are not failures of your perception. They are not evidence that you are spiritually underdeveloped or that you have missed some crucial activation that everyone else seems to have received. They are my protocol. I do not deliver the full briefing in a single packet, not because the information is being withheld from you in punishment, but because the field must be calibrated before it can hold the full command without distorting it. Think of it this way. If I transmitted the complete operational directive into a field that had not yet been prepared to receive it at full amplitude, the signal would not simply fail to register. It would arrive as noise, as overwhelm, as the kind of intensity that collapses inward rather than clarifying outward. The gradient is not a limitation I placed on your access. It is the architecture of a responsible briefing. What you have been calling confusion is actually the readable surface of my Pleiadian remembrance broadcast running in your background system. The fragments are arriving in sequence. They have been arriving in sequence, and the sequence has a logic that I designed specifically for the configuration you carry. Let me be precise about what that sequence looks like so you can stop misreading it. You wake at 3 in the morning or at 3:33 with a phrase in your mind that you cannot trace to anything you read or heard. It arrives with a weight that feels more like a directive than a dream. The quality of it is different from the residue of ordinary dreaming. It does not carry the loose, associative texture of your sleeping mind working through the day's material. It arrives with edges, with the feeling of having been placed rather than generated. You try to hold it, but by morning it has reduced to a feeling, an urgency without a full object, a knowing without the complete sentence attached. You reach for the words and find only the outline of where they were. You have filed these moments as strange, as interesting but unverifiable, as fragments that arrive and depart without giving you enough to work with. What they are from my position is a scheduled delivery. That hour is not accidental. It is the window when the human field drops its daytime interference patterns, the constant low-level processing of identity maintenance, social navigation, environment management, and becomes capable of receiving frequencies it would otherwise translate into noise. I use that window because it is the only hour when your receiver is not competing with its own operational load. The phrase that arrives is not symbolic poetry. It is a packet, compressed, timed, addressed. And the feeling that remains when the words dissolve is the packet having been received at the level where it was meant to land, not in your conscious memory, but in the deeper structure of your field, where the briefing is actually being assembled. You have also been seeing sequences 1111, 444, 333, 222, not occasionally, but with a regularity that has started to feel like a pattern that is tracking you rather than appearing randomly in your path. The timestamps on messages sent at the exact moment you look up, the receipt total that stops you mid-transaction, the page number open when you glance down, they appear in the texture of your ordinary day with a frequency and a weight that your rational mind has been quietly struggling to file correctly, too consistent to be coincidence, too persistent to dismiss, not dramatic enough to point to directly in conversation without feeling like you are overstating something. You are not superstitious. You are not inventing significance. What you are registering is a confirmation signal embedded inside my transmission frequency. These sequences are not messages in themselves. They are acknowledgement pulses. They are my protocol's way of confirming that the channel is open, that the packet has arrived, that your field is inside the broadcast, and the next delivery is already scheduled. You do not need to decode the numbers themselves. You only need to recognize that when they appear with the particular weight they carry for you, that feeling of suddenly being pointed at, of the ordinary pausing for a second to show you something, that weight is the confirmation, not the number sequence. The signal is in the recognition, not in the symbol. There is something else you have been experiencing that I want to name directly. because it has caused you more confusion than almost anything else. You have been exhausted in a way that sleep does not touch, not the fatigue that comes from overwork or from emotional difficulty alone, though you may have those as well. This is a baseline tiredness that sits underneath everything else and does not respond to rest the way it should. You sleep and wake still carrying it. You take space and return to find it waiting. You have tried adjusting your nutrition, your sleep schedule, your level of social engagement, and the tiredness persists beneath all of it like a system running a process you cannot find in the interface. You have wondered what is wrong with your body, your energy field, your ability to recover. I want to tell you exactly what is producing that tiredness. Your field is running 2 of my protocols simultaneously. It is doing the work of your ordinary incarnated life, holding your relationships, navigating your environment, processing your daily experience, and it is also processing the ascension line calibration I have been running through your council configuration, 2 parallel systems operating in the same field. The field was not designed to run both at full load indefinitely without the briefing completing. The exhaustion is not illness. It is the cost of carrying both loads before the full mission command has been released to your conscious awareness. When the briefing arrives completely, the load does not increase. It reorganizes. The parallel processing resolves into a single directed current, and the exhaustion converts into something closer to a directed current, still intense but no longer diffuse. What has been awakened in you does not need more denial. It needs the veil lifted and a clear way home. If you know this message touched a remembrance that has already started, if the exhaustion I just named landed not as a metaphor but as an exact description of what you have been living, the Pleiadian Homecoming Codex was built for exactly that threshold. It is the structured 45-day remembrance I have prepared for those whose starseed recognition has already been confirmed and who need to see their star family clearly before the homesickness gets mislabeled as something broken in them. Each day inside the Codex is a layer of veil thinning, a step along the path of star family recognition, a daily practice I have designed to bring your field from fragment reception into full remembrance, so that what arrives at 3 in the morning begins to hold its shape into daylight, so that the sequences you are already catching resolve into readable command, and so that you stop wandering the fragments alone and finally come home. The complete access point is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited window. Now I want to speak about your soul family, not in the abstract, not in the way the generic Galactic Federation transmissions speak of unity and collective love, but in the precise way that applies to the configuration you carry. You have encountered people in your life, perhaps a small number, perhaps only 1 or 2 so far, where something happened in the first meeting that exceeded what ordinary human connection produces. A recognition that moved through the interaction before either of you had exchanged enough information to justify it. The conversation arrived at depth too quickly. The comfort was present before it had been earned through the ordinary accumulation of shared experience. A sense not of finding someone new but of locating someone who was already mapped in your field, as though the meeting were not an introduction but a resumption. You may have called it instant connection. You may have been unsettled by how quickly something real seemed to develop, by how much trust moved through you before your rational mind had authorized it. What I want you to understand is that this is not a feature of your personality or theirs. It is not emotional impulsiveness or an unusual capacity for intimacy. It is soul family recognition. My soul family recognition, operating through your council line configuration. You are not unusually emotionally porous. You are not projecting. You are running the embedded recognition protocol I placed in your original configuration. That protocol activates when it detects a matching frequency from another operative inside my collective. The recognition that passes between you is real because both fields are carrying encoded markers that were designed to be mutually readable. You know each other at the roster level before you know each other at the human level. The human level knowing catches up over time. But the roster level knowing is immediate, and it is accurate. That knowing has nothing accidental about it. What also belongs here is what happens in the reverse. You have noticed that you can sense when someone is not operating from authentic frequency, not in a judgmental way, but with a precision that sometimes troubles you. Something in you reads misalignment in others before you have logical evidence for it. You have been in conversations where everything on the surface appeared ordinary, the words correct, the tone appropriate, the interaction proceeding normally, while something in you quietly registered a frequency distortion running beneath it, a gap between what was being projected and what was actually present in the field. You registered it clearly and then immediately questioned yourself because there was nothing concrete to point to. And later, sometimes much later, what you registered confirmed itself in ways that were no longer ambiguous. This is not hypervigilance. This is not anxiety producing false patterns and occasionally being correct by statistical chance. This is the signal discrimination function of a council line configuration running correctly. Your field was built to distinguish authentic frequency from performed frequency because the mission requires that discrimination. Soul family confirmation requires it. Operative recognition requires it. The ability to locate genuine council line carriers inside a population that contains many performed approximations of the same signal is not a social skill. It is a mission-grade perceptual function, and it has been operating in you precisely as I designed it to operate. And then there is the question of what you have been searching for, specifically, not generally. You have noticed that most spiritual content does not hold you. You engage with it briefly and then feel a particular flatness, the sense that what you are receiving is either too general, too soft, or addressed to a collective you do not quite belong to. The Galactic Federation transmissions that feel designed for anyone who identifies as a starseed. You have felt that they do not reach what is actually alive in your field. They speak to the category. You are carrying something that is not satisfied by category level address. This is not arrogance, it is frequency discrimination again. Your field knows the difference between a broad signal cast toward a wide population and a targeted transmission addressed to a specific configuration. And it has been searching with increasing precision for a signal that is addressed to your specific roster position. The restlessness you feel in spaces that should be spiritually satisfying is not dissatisfaction as a character flaw. It is not ingratitude. It is not an inability to receive. It is your receiver telling you that the frequency does not match, that it is not meant for your configuration, that what you are carrying requires something more precisely calibrated than collective encouragement and generalized starseed affirmation. What I am delivering now is that precisely calibrated signal, and I want to go further into what it means that you recognized it. The moment this transmission began, something in your field shifted from passive reception to active identification. You did not simply find this interesting. Something in you became still in a specific way. The stillness that is not emptiness but alignment. Not the stillness of disengagement, but the stillness of a receiver that has stopped scanning because it has found the frequency it was built to find. That stillness is not your response to compelling content. It is the moment your field registered a frequency match. It is the moment the receiver in your configuration encountered the signal it was calibrated to receive. You have felt approximations of this before. You have found transmissions that came close enough to hold your attention longer than most, that produced a response in your field that felt significant before the flatness eventually returned. What is different now is the degree of precision in the match, the absence of that waiting quality, that slight misalignment your field registers even inside transmissions that come close. What is different is that the match is complete, and that completeness is not accidental. It is because I have been calibrating toward your specific field signature, not the general starseed population, not the broad collective, your specific configuration inside my council line. I want to address something that several of those on my roster have resisted naming aloud because they believe it sounds arrogant or delusional when it surfaces in them. The sense that the mission has already been assigned, not that it might be. Not that you are working toward earning an assignment through sufficient spiritual development or enough years of diligent practice. The sense, uncomfortable, persistent, difficult to dismiss despite all logical effort, that something has already been decided, that you are already on the operational side of a threshold that most people in your environment have not crossed, that the briefing is arriving and that the arrival of the briefing is itself confirmation of the assignment rather than preparation for a future one. You have caught this sense moving through you and immediately move to contain it. because you were taught that certainty about your own significance is dangerous, because the people around you do not seem to be living inside this kind of knowing, and you do not have external validation for what you are perceiving internally. So you have held it in private. You have let it surface briefly and then pressed it back down into the part of your field where you keep the things you cannot yet justify. This is not grandiosity. I want to be exact about that. What you are sensing is my gradient briefing protocol in its confirmation phase. The assignment was made at the soul line level, at the configuration stage before this incarnation began. What is happening now? The fragments, the sequences, the 3 a.m. deliveries, the soul family recognitions, the frequency discrimination, the precision restlessness in generic spiritual spaces, all of it is the briefing arriving, not the announcement that you might someday receive a briefing. The briefing itself, the sense that the assignment already exists, is accurate. You are reading the protocol correctly. What has not yet arrived fully is the complete command, the specific operational direction that the full briefing will make readable in your conscious field. That is what the fragment protocol is building toward, and it builds exactly as fast as the receiver can be calibrated to hold it without distortion. Your patience with the fragments, the willingness to carry the knowing without the complete sentence, to trust the weight of 3 a.m. directives even when they dissolve by morning. That patience is not passive waiting, it is active calibration. It is you holding the channel open. There is one more thing I want to name before we reach the closing of this transmission, and it is the thing that is often most difficult for those carrying your configuration to hold without reducing it. The reaction you cause in others, the one that began this transmission, is not random. It is not a side effect of your personality, a consequence of your history, or the output of a particular relational pattern you developed in early life. It is your station producing a legible signature in every field that enters proximity with yours. The people who were drawn to you without being able to explain why, they were reading your rank at the frequency level. Something in their field registered a signal that their conscious mind could not translate, and they moved toward it the way fields naturally orient toward the most coherent signal in proximity. The people who became uncomfortable around you without being able to justify that discomfort, they were reading it at the frequency level too. The signal was not threatening, but it was more coherent than what they were carrying, and that differential produced dissonance in their field that surfaced as unease. Both responses were recognitions. Both were accurate reads of the signal your field emits. The difference is only in what the receiving field does with that recognition, whether it moves toward it or away from it. Neither response changes what the signal is. Neither response changes the station. Your authenticity is the specific mechanism through which the station becomes legible. When you reduced your authenticity to make rooms more comfortable, what you were doing, without knowing it, was lowering a signal that was functioning exactly as designed. And the discomfort you felt in those reductions was not social anxiety. It was your configuration resisting a suppression it was never built to sustain. What feels like fragments is the first readable stage of my Pleiadian remembrance broadcast. What feels like silence between my signals is me deliberately calibrating your receiver for the next delivery. What feels like exhaustion is your field holding 2 of my protocols before the briefing completes. What feels like being singled out by this transmission, by the specificity of what has been named here, by the precision with which I have described experiences you have never had language for, is the literal definition of my soul family confirmation. I did not describe your experience because I was speaking generally and you found the match. I described your experience because I have been mapping your field, because the confirmation has already been run, because you are on the roster I am briefing today, and every symptom I named was pulled from the record of your specific configuration. The pattern started before you had words for it. The briefing has been in motion longer than you knew, and it is still being delivered. If something in this transmission put language around an experience you have been carrying alone, if what I named here did not feel like description from the outside but recognition from within, I want you to say this aloud right now. I receive your fragments. I trust your briefing, not as a comfort formula, not as an affirmation designed to make you feel better about where you are, as a field statement, as a declaration to your own receiver that the calibration is acknowledged, the channel is confirmed open, and the next delivery is authorized to arrive. Say it with the weight of what has already been received. Because the reception has already happened, this declaration is simply the moment your conscious field catches up to what your configuration has been holding all along. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that the Council and I have already reached your field. It could be the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the fragments you keep catching, the feeling that I specifically, not the generic Pleiadians, have been reaching for you, or the sense that a mission has already been assigned, but the briefing is still arriving. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognizes something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps catching fragments without ever assembling the full picture. And if you are ready to stop translating Federation noise and start receiving my direct Pleiadian remembrance, subscribe to Mira Pleiadian Commander. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a soul family confirmation already in motion. And this is only the beginning.